All right, today we're jumping into one of my favorite topics, mannerism. It's this absolutely fascinating, kind of weird art style that was born when the world itself felt like it was in turmoil. Just imagine what kind of art gets made when everything you thought was true suddenly starts to feel like it's falling apart.
So let's just dive right in with this comparison. On the left, you've got the High Renaissance. Everything is calm, it's balanced, it's harmonious. It's a world that feels completely rational and beautiful. And then you look at the right, and it's just this explosion of anxiety, distortion, and super intense emotion. This jarring shift, that's our story.
To really get why art suddenly got so, weird, we first have to understand the perfect world it was rebelling against. And this isn't just about how to paint a picture, it's about an entire way of seeing the universe.
Okay, so in the High Renaissance, you had masters like Raphael, Leonardo, and Michelangelo who were basically seen as having perfected art. The goal was idealized beauty, rational harmony. They created a world on the canvas that was balanced, logical, serene. I mean, a lot of people thought this was it, the absolute peak of human creativity.
And this artistic perfection? It mirrored this huge idea at the time called the Great Chain of Being. The concept was simple. The entire universe was this rigid, divinely ordered ladder. You had God at the very top, then angels, then kings, nobles, commoners, animals, all the way down to rocks. Everything and everyone had a fixed place. No questions asked.
But here's the thing, that perfect, tidy system was starting to crack. People were starting to ask questions, thanks to the spirit of Renaissance humanism. All these new discoveries were creating this profound sense of intellectual uncertainty. All of a sudden, the world didn't feel so orderly anymore, and art needed a totally new language to talk about all this new anxiety.
So, what did the artists do? The next generation didn't just bend the rules of the High Renaissance. They completely shattered them. They had to. They were creating a brand new visual language, one that could actually capture this new, complex, and let's be honest, pretty uncomfortable reality. Yeah, mannerism basically threw the old rulebook right out the window. Artists started embracing everything that was exaggerated and artificial. You see these unnaturally long limbs, these tiny little heads on impossibly long necks, and the colors? Oh man, they were shocking, almost acidic, clashing colors. Figures were all twisted up in these serpentine poses. It was all about raw emotional intensity, not just painting something that looks real.
And here's the crucial part. These distortions weren't mistakes. They weren't just for decoration. They were totally intentional. The artists were making a comment on perception itself. They were forcing you, the viewer, to feel the psychological and spiritual tension that the subject was feeling.
I mean, just look at the difference. It is absolutely stark. On one side, Raphael is giving you this serene balance and super clear perspective. It's calm. On the other, an artist like Pontormo is giving you swirling chaos and these wild clashing colors. Mannerism completely abandons that calm rationality for this deep, visceral dive into human emotion and spiritual conflict.
Now, what's really wild is that this artistic style was basically a mirror for the entire culture. This feeling that everything was coming unhinged. It wasn't just on the canvas, it was everywhere, from the theater stage right up to the royal throne.
Mannerist art absolutely loved to play intellectual games with you. So take a close look at this famous painting by Hans Holbein. It's packed with all these symbols of wealth, power, and knowledge. But there's something else in there, something sinister, hiding right in plain sight. Do you see it?
The secret is that weird, stretched-out smudge at the bottom of the painting. It's what's called an anamorphic skull, a deliberately distorted image that only snaps into a clear picture of a skull when you look at it from a very specific, skewed angle. It's this brilliant, mind-bending visual trick and a gut-punch reminder that death is always lurking right beneath the surface, completely distorting our perspective on everything.
And this exact same feeling, this sense that the world is out of balance, that maybe it's all meaningless, it just erupts in the plays of Shakespeare. When Macbeth delivers this devastating line, he is voicing the ultimate mannerist idea, this deep, profound disillusionment where all the old certainties have just crumbled into dust.
Now, this focus on artifice, on performance, it wasn't just for paintings or plays. It was right at the heart of political power. And it was embodied, most famously, by one of the most powerful rulers in history. Right, Queen Elizabeth I. She understood better than anyone that being a monarch was a performance, played out on a national stage. She created what was called the Mask of Youth, this carefully constructed public image to present herself as an ageless, immortal virgin queen. She used artifice, all the heavy makeup and elaborate gowns, and props like carrying a sieve to symbolize her purity, or an orb to show her power over the world. It was all part of the show.
When you think about it, her entire reign was a kind of performance art. Her public image was a deliberate, totally mannerist construction. Every single gesture was a contrived pose, just like the figures in a mannerist painting, all designed to project this artificial image of eternal power and stability for her people.
But hey, mannerism wasn't all anxiety and political drama. It also had this wonderfully bizarre, whimsical side that was just as revealing about what was going on in people's heads.
Yeah, the movement had a really surprising sense of humor and a love for what we'd call the grotesque. I mean, seriously, what are you supposed to make of a portrait that's constructed entirely out of fruit, vegetables, and fish?
So you had artists like Giuseppe Arcimboldo, who got famous for these witty, totally bizarre portraits. And they were more than just a gag. They tapped into the era's new fascination with classifying the natural world, which was a huge deal in courts that were obsessed with alchemy and collecting strange objects. Then you had other artists like Bronzino, who made these dense, complex allegories that were basically intellectual puzzles you were meant to solve.
And really that gets to the very heart of it. Whether it was feeling anxious or being political or just getting whimsical, mannerism was the perfect mirror for its society. It captured all the cracks that were forming in that stable, old world of the Renaissance. And it gave a voice to the profound anxiety, but also the intellectual curiosity of a strange new era that was just beginning.
Which, of course, leaves us with a pretty provocative question. Art is always a mirror, right? Mannerism reflected a society that was grappling with the collapse of everything it thought was certain. So it kind of begs the question, what does the art of our time say about our anxieties? What's our mirror showing us?